Ever get that feeling? Like your memory is playing tricks on you? It's like a puzzle. You're trying to piece it all together.
Well, today we're going deep, deep into memory. We'll be exploring how our brains store information, why it's so important, and why sometimes it feels like our memories are anything but reliable.
It's true. Memory. It's way more complex and dynamic than we often give it credit for. You know, it's not just remembering facts or events or whatever. It's the foundation of who we are. It shapes us, our identities, our relationships, even our future decisions, all of that.
That's what I find so interesting about memory. It's personal. We're talking about how our minds work, the inner workings. Our mission today is to understand the basics of memory, but also to uncover some hidden gems, those surprising facts that make you go, whoa, I never thought of it that way.
Exactly. And one of those surprising facts is that our memories, they're not fixed, not fixed recordings of the past. They're more like constantly evolving narratives shaped by our emotions, experiences, even the act of remembering itself. That's a bit unsettling, isn't it? To think that our memories, these things we hold so dear, they might not be as accurate as we believe.
It is, but it's also incredibly fascinating. Think about it. Every time you recall a memory, you're essentially reconstructing it based on the fragments that are most accessible at that moment.
So it's like piecing together a puzzle, but the pieces might change shape or color each time we look at them.
Precisely, and those pieces, they can be influenced by all sorts of things. Our current mood, what we've been thinking about recently, even the questions someone asks us about that memory.
That makes me think about those childhood stories that we tell and retell over the years. Have you ever noticed how those stories, they seem to change a bit with each telling?
Absolutely. It's not that we're intentionally trying to deceive anyone. It's just that memory is inherently a reconstructive process.
This is starting to sound a bit like that movie Inception, where they're planting false memories.
Well, it's not quite that dramatic in everyday life. However, it does highlight the idea that our memories can be influenced without us even realizing it.
So before we get too deep into those memory quirks, let's lay the groundwork. Start with the basics. When we talk about memory, what exactly are we referring to?
At its core, memory is the process of encoding, storing, and retrieving information. It's what allows us to learn new things, form relationships, navigate the world around us, all of that.
It's also what gives us that sense of personal history, that continuity of self. Imagine if you couldn't remember your childhood, your loved ones, or even the skills you've acquired over a lifetime.
Exactly. Memory is the glue that holds our life story together. It connects our past to our present and shapes our future.
I've read that there are different types of memory. Can you break that down for us?
Of course. Scientists generally categorize memory into three main types: sensory memory, short-term memory, and long-term memory.
Okay, so sensory memory. That's the one that captures those fleeting impressions from our senses, right? Like the image you see after a camera flash.
That's a great analogy. Sensory memory is incredibly brief. It lasts only a fraction of a second, but it's crucial for processing the constant stream of information bombarding our senses.
And then we have short-term memory, which is like our brain's mental notepad, where we jot down information we need to remember temporarily, like a phone number or a grocery.
Precisely. Short-term memory is limited in capacity, in duration. It can only hold a small amount of information for a short period of time.
And we want to remember something for longer. For longer than that, it needs to be transferred to long-term memory.
Exactly. Long-term memory is the vast library of our minds. It stores information for years, even a lifetime, everything, from childhood memories to the facts you learned in school to the skills you've mastered.
It's incredible how much information our brains can store. So we've got these different types of memory. But how does this amazing process actually work inside our brains? What's going on at a neural level?
Well, it's not as simple as filing information away in a cabinet. It involves intricate networks of neurons, electrical and chemical signals, and specific brain regions that play key roles.
So it's more like a complex interconnected web of information constantly being formed and reformed.
That's a good way to think about it. And to understand how it works, we need to look at the three key steps: encoding, storage, and retrieval.
Okay, so encoding, that's the process of transforming information into a format that our brains can store, right?
That's right. It's like taking a photo and saving it as a digital file on your computer. To encode information effectively, we need to pay attention, make connections to existing knowledge, and engage in deeper processing.
So if I'm trying to learn something new, I shouldn't just passively read it or listen to it. I need to actively engage with it, connect it to things I already know, and maybe even try to explain it to someone else.
You got it. The more deeply you process information, the more meaningful it becomes, and the stronger the encoding process.
And once information is encoded, it needs to be stored somewhere in our brains. What does that process look like?
Storage involves complex interactions between neurons, forming neural networks that represent specific memories. And these networks, they're distributed throughout the brain, not localized to one specific area.
I've heard that the hippocampus plays a particularly important role in memory. Is that right?
Yes, the hippocampus. It's a key structure involved in the formation of new memories. It's like the brain's librarian, helping to
Okay.
organize and consolidate memories before transferring them to other areas for long-term storage.
So it's not just one part of the brain doing all the work.
Yeah.
It's a team effort with different regions working together to create and store our memories.
Exactly. And then we have retrieval, which is the process of bringing a memory back into conscious awareness.
So like searching for that file
Yeah,
on our mental hard drive and opening it up.
precisely. And here's where it gets really interesting. Each time we recall a memory, we're actually re-encoding it, making it stronger and less likely to be forgotten.
Wait, so every time we remember something, we're actually changing it. That's a bit unsettling, isn't it?
It is. But it also highlights the dynamic nature of memory. Our memories are not static recordings. They're constantly being reshaped and updated based on our current experiences and understanding of the world. It's like each time we revisit a memory, we're adding like a new layer of paint to a canvas. The original image is still there, but the colors and textures might shift slightly.
That's a great analogy. And that brings us back to the idea of memory as a puzzle.
Yeah.
Constantly being assembled and reassembled.
Precisely. And this malleability of memory, it has profound implications for how we understand ourselves and the world around us.
You mentioned earlier that this has particular relevance in legal contexts.
Yeah.
Like eyewitness testimony.
Absolutely. Eyewitness accounts, they're often seen as the gold standard of evidence, but the reality is they can be surprisingly unreliable. Studies have shown that even minor variations in the way questions are asked can significantly alter a witness's recollection of events.
I remember reading about a case where multiple witnesses to a crime, they gave conflicting accounts, even though they were all present
Yeah.
at the same event.
That's not uncommon at all. Our memories are influenced by our individual perspectives, biases, and expectations.
Yeah.
And these influences, they can distort our recollections, sometimes without us even realizing it.
So how do we know what to trust? If our own memories can be so easily swayed, how can we be sure of anything?
That's the million-dollar question. There's no easy answer. But one thing we can do is be more aware of the potential for memory bias. We need to approach our own memories with a healthy dose of skepticism and be open to the possibility that our recollections might not be entirely accurate.
So it's not about dismissing our memories altogether,
Right.
but rather acknowledging that they are not infallible.
Exactly. And this is where understanding the science of memory can be so empowering. It allows us to view our own memories through a more critical lens and to be more discerning consumers of information in general.
It's like having a behind-the-scenes look at how our minds work so we can better understand the tricks they sometimes play on us.
Precisely. And this knowledge, it can also help us develop strategies to improve our memory and make information stick.
Okay, now we're talking. This is what I was hoping for. Give us the good stuff. How can we hack our own memories?
Well, one of the most effective techniques is spaced repetition. Instead of cramming all your studying into one session, you spread it out over time, revisiting the material at increasing intervals.
So kind of like how we're revisiting these key concepts throughout our deep dive today. Meta.
Exactly. Each time you recall the information, you're strengthening those neural pathways and making it more likely that you'll remember it in the long term.
Makes sense. What else?
Another powerful strategy is elaboration. Instead of just passively absorbing information, try to actively engage with it. Connect it to your existing knowledge. Think about it from different perspectives. Even try to teach it to someone else.
So like if I'm trying to remember a historical fact, I might imagine myself back in that time period,
Hmm.
or try to relate it to a movie I've seen or a book I've read.
Precisely. The more deeply you process information, the more meaningful it becomes. And the better you'll remember it.
It's all about making those connections, forging those strong links in our minds.
Exactly. And here's another tip. Pay attention to your physical and emotional state. When you're learning, research has shown that we tend to remember things better when we're in a positive emotional state.
So if I'm feeling stressed or anxious, it might not be the best time to try to memorize a presentation or cram for an exam.
Exactly. Take care of your mental and physical well-being, get enough sleep, manage stress levels, and find ways to make learning enjoyable. These things, they can have a significant impact on memory.
And on the flip side, if I can find a way to associate positive emotions with the material I'm trying to learn, I'm more likely to remember.
Precisely. So if you're dreading studying for a particular subject, try to find something interesting about it. Connect it to something you're passionate about, or even create a fun game or activity out of it.
It's amazing how understanding the science behind memory can actually give us practical tools to improve our recall.
Absolutely. Knowledge is power, and understanding how our minds work can empower us to become better learners, thinkers, and decision makers.
We've covered so much ground already. We've defined memory, explored the different types, delved into the brain's role, and even touched on the dynamic and sometimes unreliable nature of our memories. But before we wrap up, I have to ask about those weird memory quirks we all experienced. Like what about déjà vu? Or those times when a scent triggers a flood of vivid memories?
Those are great questions, and they highlight just how complex and mysterious memory really is. We've made great strides in understanding how memory works, but there's still so much we don't know.
It's like we've explored the outer edges of a vast uncharted territory, and now we're ready to venture into the unknown. And that brings us to part 3 of this deep dive, where we'll dive into some of those fascinating memory phenomena that make us question everything we thought we knew about how our brains work. All right, we're about to enter like the twilight zone of memory, those strange and sometimes inexplicable experiences that make us wonder, like, how much do we really know about how our minds work?
It's true. There are still so many mysteries surrounding memory, and these quirks, they offer a glimpse into the incredible complexity of this cognitive function.
Let's start with a classic, déjà vu, that eerie feeling of familiarity, like you've experienced a situation before, even though you know you haven't. What's going on there?
Déjà vu. It's a fascinating phenomenon, and there's no single definitive explanation. However, there are several intriguing theories.
Some people, they attribute it to glitches in the matrix or even past lives.
Those are certainly popular theories, but they're not really supported by scientific evidence. Neuroscientists, they believe that déjà vu, it might be caused by temporary misfirings in the brain's neural circuits.
So like a momentary hiccup in the system.
Exactly. This misfiring, it could create a false sense of familiarity, even in a novel situation.
Another theory I've heard is that déjà vu, it might be related to the way our brains process patterns.
That's right. If we encounter a new situation, that shares subtle similarities with the past experience, our brains might recognize the pattern and trigger a feeling of familiarity.
Even if we're not consciously aware of those similarities.
And because the feeling of familiarity is so strong, we assume we must have experienced this exact situation before.
Okay, that makes sense. It's like our brain is playing a trick on us, making us feel like we've time traveled or stepped into an alternate reality.
In a way it is, but it's a trick. That reveals something fundamental about how our brains work, constantly seeking patterns, making connections, trying to make sense of the world around us.
Now, what about those times when a specific scent triggers like a flood of vivid memories? I can smell freshly cut grass, and suddenly I'm transported back to my childhood, playing in my grandmother's backyard.
That's a powerful example of what we call the Proust phenomenon, named after the French novelist Marcel Proust, who famously described how the taste of a Madeleine cookie, it evoked a flood of childhood memories.
So it's not just sense. It can be any sensory experience
Yeah.
that triggers these involuntary memories.
That's right. It could be a sound, a taste, a touch, anything. Anything that evokes a strong association with a past experience.
And these memories, they're often incredibly vivid and emotionally charged.
Exactly. This is because our sensory systems, they're directly connected
No.
to the amygdala, the part of the brain that's responsible for processing emotions.
So when we encounter a familiar scent or sound, it activates not just our memories, but our emotions as well.
Precisely. And this emotional connection, it makes these memories particularly potent and long-lasting.
It's like those sensory experiences. They're keys that unlock hidden chambers in our minds, releasing memories and emotions that we might have forgotten we even had.
That's a beautiful way to put it. And these involuntary memories, they can be both a source of joy and pain, reminding us of cherished moments, as well as painful experiences.
It's fascinating how a simple scent or sound can transport us back in time, evoking emotions and memories that we might have thought were buried forever.
It speaks to the profound power of our senses and their connection to our memories and emotions.
We've talked about the malleability of memory, how our memories can be influenced and even distorted over time. But what about those flashbulb memories, those incredibly vivid and detailed memories of highly emotional events, like where we were when we heard about a major news event?
Flashbulb memories, they're fascinating. They often feel incredibly real and accurate, like a snapshot of a specific moment in time. However, even these seemingly indelible memories, they're subject to the same reconstructive processes as other types of memories.
So even though they feel so real, they might not be entirely accurate.
That's right. Over time, flashbulb memories, they can be influenced by subsequent information, conversations, and even our own emotional responses to the event.
So the more we talk about a particular memory, the more likely it is to change.
Exactly. Each time we recall a memory, we're essentially re-encoding it in this process. It can introduce subtle alterations and distortions.
That makes me think about how families often share memories of significant events. Do you think those shared memories, they tend to become more similar over time as they're repeated and reinterpreted?
That's a great question, and it's something that researchers have studied. It seems that shared memories, they do tend to converge over time as family members reinforce and influence each other's recollections.
It's like those shared memories. They become part of the family lore, passed down through generations, and with each telling, they're shaped and reshaped, becoming both more personal and more collective.
That's a wonderful way to think about it. Our memories are not just our own. They're part of a shared tapestry of experiences woven together through conversations, stories, and reminiscences.
It's almost as if those memories, they take on a life of their own, evolving and transforming as they're passed from person to person and generation to generation.
That's a profound thought, and it highlights the idea that memory is not just about the past. It's about connecting us to others, creating shared histories, and building a sense of community.
We've covered so much ground in this deep dive. We've explored the different types of memory, delved into the brain's role in encoding, storing, and retrieving information, and even ventured into the strange and fascinating world of memory quirks.
We've learned that memory is not a perfect recording of the past, but rather a dynamic, ever-evolving process shaped by our experiences, emotions, and the very act of remembering.
And we've discovered that understanding how memory works can empower us to improve our recall, navigate the complexities of our own memories, and appreciate the incredible power of this often overlooked cognitive function.
So keep those brains buzzing, folks. Keep learning, keep exploring, and keep questioning everything you think you know about how your mind works.
And remember, every time you recall a memory, you're not just revisiting the past, you're actively shaping it. If memories can be reshaped and reinterpreted, what does that say about the nature of identity itself? Food for thought. We'll see you next time.
On the deep dive.